Unless you've been under a rock the past few weeks, you know the major news story has been Russia's takeover of the Ukraine. You've been blasted with a media narrative, which does have some ring of truth, but it isn't the whole truth. And what you may have missed is a threat to your future, your finances, and also to your liberty. There are three important points you must grasp if you are to understand the war underway and learn how to protect your family. First, this is primarily an economic war, at least as the West is waging it. We've warned about this for over a decade, and now we see multiple headlines validating our analysis. Second, while the Ukrainian people are suffering the consequences, the larger war is between two different worldviews, and neither of them is good for your liberty. In fact, there are two dystopian visions, and if either were to get the upper hand, we lose our freedoms. Both are bad. Third, the short and long-term implications are much greater than you have imagined. This conflict, seemingly half a world away, will impact everything, changing our relationship with China, accelerating some trends we've highlighted, altering the course of history, and making millionaires of some and paupers of others. How you react will make all the difference. Point number one, the world has changed in some dramatic, unseen ways. We started warning about this 15 years ago, and I had the task of educating our government on the new form of conflict we call global economic warfare. The paradigm has shifted completely, and it's important that you understand it. To illustrate the point, here are a few headlines gathered recently. From the UK Guardian, the West has declared all-out financial war with Russia. What does this mean? From Bloomberg, to punish Putin, the world turned finance into a weapon of war. From CNBC, the West is trying to destroy Russia's economy, and analysts think it could succeed. From Globe and Mail, West wages economic war on Russia with unprecedented sanctions. From National Review, watching the Russian economy collapse before our eyes. From New York Times, investors weigh the effects of the economic war on Russia. And from Politico, the West declares economic war on Russia. It doesn't matter if you're a leftist or a right-winger, American, Asian, European. To anyone paying attention, the West is applying the very sort of economic warfare that I've taught about for years, and it's happening just as we predicted. This is an important understanding. But what is interesting is that while the West is waging all-out economic warfare, the Russians are rolling tanks. It is literally a clash between 21st century and 20th century warfare, although with an unexpected twist. Russians undoubtedly have undertaken cyber warfare, and the impact of that is yet to be seen. We'll cover more about that a little later. The bottom line, though, is we have yet to see the outcome regarding whether or not tanks can beat economic sanctions. They each have their strengths and their weaknesses. In 2014, I wrote a book titled Game Plan: How to Protect Yourself from the Coming Cyber Economic Attack. If you haven't read it, you should pick up a copy. I reread it recently, and it remains remarkably current in many respects. What is understated, however, is the degree to which a government might use the same economic and financial weapons against individual citizens to coerce their desired outcome. For example, the very same weapons being used by the West were brandished recently by Trudeau in Canada against the trucker convoy. He relented rather quickly, but the statement was clear. If you don't bow to the government, you will be cut off from polite society and also from any economic connections. Someone probably should have told him that COVID was the last serious crisis and an economic war with Russia over Ukraine was the next focus. But don't miss the point. Western governments are intent on using economic weapons against individuals and governments alike. If you say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, or even think the wrong way, you'll find yourself on the receiving end of an economic onslaught. For individuals, this means that you could lose your job. Think I'm kidding? People are labeled as haters, and they lose their job simply for making a comment. In addition, you can be removed from social media. Restaurants may refuse to serve you. Well, banks may cut you off. If people feel sorry for you and want to help pay your bills, your GoFundMe account could be confiscated. It's all rather intimidating, and that's by design. For nation, it's the same playbook, only on a grander scale. The impact of cutting off Russian exports and access to financial markets is astounding. Some estimate that the Russian economy will be cut in half. That's beyond a depression. Assets in the West have been frozen.